Hey all, Ron here from Military Images Magazine with a new episode of Life on a Civil War Research Trail. My recent series of videos featuring various commentaries by senior Confederate officers prompted a subscriber to ask if any of them commented on Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain at Little Round Top. Well, the reference that comes immediately to mind was written by Colonel William Calvin Oats. He's pictured here on the far left. Life dates 1835 to 1910. He was in charge of the 15th Alabama Infantry. He's a lawyer in Abbeville, Alabama. Previous to the war, he began his service as a captain and advanced to colonel and commander by the spring of 1863, just a few months before Gettysburg. During the afternoon of the second day of the fight, it fell to Oats and his regiment, plus other Alabamians, to charge Little Round Top, which, as you students of the Civil War know, had been undefended until Major General Gouverneur K. Warren, with the aid of the U.S. Signal Corps, realized the strategic importance and the danger to Major General George G. Meade's entire Army of the Potomac. Warren moved quickly to find Union troops to defend the exposed, imperiled position. Colonel Oats described the action in his 1905 memoir, The War Between the Union and the Confederacy and Its Lost Opportunities, which has been digitized and is available on Internet Archive. Go check it out. I recommend it. I want to share the relevant passages by Oates in which he honored his men for their fighting qualities. He honored Chamberlain and his Maine men for their fighting qualities. Oates also mentions Captain Lewis Nolan and the charge of the Light Brigade during the 1854 Crimean War, Battle of Balaclava. So let's begin. Oates writes, if I had had one more regiment, we would have completely turned the flank and have won Little Round Top, which would have forced Meade's whole left wing to retire. Had the 48th Alabama not been transferred to the left, it would have driven the sharpshooters, and then following my advance, we would have gotten in the rear of the Federal line and have completely turned the tide of battle in favor of the Confederates. With the 5 companies of skirmishers which had gone to the east of the mountain, they might have made my assault successful. Another lost opportunity. I knew that the left of the 47th was disconnected. I knew not how far from the right of the 4th Alabama, and consequently was outflanked on its left and without support. The 7 companies of that regiment present confronted the 83rd Pennsylvania and was enfiladed by the left oblique fire of the left wing of the 44th New York, which was very destructive and drove the men from the obstructions behind which they were sheltering. Lieutenant Colonel Bolger, in command of the 47th Alabama companies, a most gallant old gentleman over 60 years of age, fell severely wounded, and soon afterwards his 7 companies, after behaving most gallantly, broke and, in confusion, retreated southward toward the position of the other regiments of the brigade and reached their right. I aided their gallant Major Campbell in his efforts to hold them, but having no support on the left, they could not be rallied and held to the position. Just as the 47th companies were being driven back, I ordered my regiment to change direction to the left, swing around, and drive the Federals from the ledge of rocks for the purpose of enfilading their line, relieving the 47th, gain the enemy's rear, and drive him from the hill. My men obeyed and advanced about halfway to the enemy's position, but their fire was so destructive that my line wavered like a man trying to walk against a strong wind, and then slowly, doggedly gave back a little. Then, with no one upon the left or right of me, my regiment exposed, while the enemy was still under cover, To stand there and die was sheer folly. Either to retreat or advance became a necessity. The lieutenant colonel, I.B. Fagan, had lost his leg at Plum Run. The heroic Captain Ellison had fallen, while Captain Brainerd, one of the bravest and best officers in the regiment, in leading his company forward, fell, exclaiming, "Oh God, that I could see my mother," and instantly expired. Lieutenant John A. Oats, my dear brother, succeeded to the command of the company, but was pierced through by a number of bullets and fell mortally wounded. Lieutenant Cody fell mortally wounded. Captain Bethune and several other officers were seriously injured, while the carnage in the ranks was appalling. I again ordered the advance, and knowing the officers and men of that gallant old regiment, I felt sure that they would follow their commander anywhere in the line of duty. I passed through the line, waving my sword, shouting, "Forward, men, to the ledge!" And it was promptly followed by the command in splendid style. We drove the Federals from their strong defensive position. 5 times they rallied and charged us, twice coming so near that some of my men had to use the bayonet, but in vain was their effort. It was our time now to deal death and destruction to a gallant foe, and the account was speedily settled. I led this charge and sprang upon the ledge of rock, using my pistol within musket length, when the rush of my men drove the Maine men from the ledge along the line, now indicated by stone markers on the east end of Vincent's Spur. I've seen a statement from General Chamberlain that his right was not forced back beyond the pointer angle of the rocky ledge where the right marker of his regiment stands. My recollection is quite different. At this angle and to the southwest of it is where I lost the greatest number of my men. The 20th Maine was driven back from this ledge, but not farther than to the next ledge on the mountainside. I recall a circumstance which I can recollect. I, with my regiment, made a rush forward from the ledge. About 40 steps up the slope, there's a large boulder about midway the spur. The Maine regiment charged my line, coming right up in a hand-to-hand encounter. My regimental colors were just a step or two to the right of that boulder, and I was within 10 feet. A Maine man grasped the staff of the colors when Ensign Archibald stepped back and Sergeant Pat O'Connor stove his bayonet through the head of the Yankee, who fell dead. I witnessed the incident, which impressed me beyond the point of being forgotten. There never were harder fighters than the 20th Maine men and their gallant colonel. His skill and persistency and the great bravery of his men saved Little Round Top and the Army of the Potomac from defeat. Great events sometimes turn on comparatively small affairs. My position rapidly became untenable. The Federal infantry were reported to be coming down on my right and certainly were closing in on my rear, while some dismounted cavalry were closing the only avenue escape on my left rear. I sent my sergeant major with a request to Colonel Bowles of the 4th Alabama, the next in line to the left, to come to my relief. He returned within a minute and reported that none of our troops were in sight, the enemy to be between us and the 4th Alabama and swarming the woods south of Little Round Top. The lamented Captain Park, who was afterwards killed at Knoxville, and Captain Hill, killed near Richmond in 1864, came and informed me that the enemy were closing in on our rear. I sent Park to ascertain their number. He soon returned and reported that 2 regiments were coming up behind us, and just then I saw them halt behind a fence some 200 yards distant, from which they opened fire on us. These, I have since learned from him, were the battalions of Stoughton's sharpshooters, each of which carried a flag, hence the impression that there were 2 regiments. They had been lost in the woods, but guided by the firing, came up in our rear. At Balaclava, Captain Nolan's 600 had cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, which volleyed and thundered. But at this moment, the 15th Alabama had infantry in front of them, to the right of them, dismounted cavalry to the left of them, and infantry in the rear of them, with a withering and deadly fire pouring in upon us from every direction. It seemed that the regiment was doomed to destruction. While one man was shot in the face, his right hand or left hand comrade was shot in the side or the back. Some were struck simultaneously with 2 or 3 balls from different directions. Captains Hill and Park suggested that I should order a retreat, but this seemed impracticable. My dead and wounded were then nearly as great in number as those still on duty. They literally covered the ground. The blood stood in puddles in some places on the rocks. The ground was soaked with blood of as brave men as ever fell on the red field of battle. I still hoped for reinforcements or for the tide of success to turn my way. It seemed impossible to retreat, and I therefore replied to my captains, "Return to your companies. We will sell out as dearly as possible." Hill made no reply, but Park smiled pleasantly, gave me a military salute, and said, "All right, sir." On reflection, a few moments later, I saw no hope of success and did order a retreat, but did not undertake to retire in order. I sent Sergeant Major Norris and had the officers and men advised the best I could that when the signal was given that we would try not to retreat in order, but everyone should run in the direction from whence we came and halt on top of the Big Round Top Mountain. I found the undertaking to capture Little Round Top too great for my regiment unsupported. I waited until the next charge of the 20th Maine was repulsed, as it would give my men a better chance to get out unhurt, and then ordered the retreat. The historian of that regiment claims that its charge drove us from the field. That is not true. I ordered the retreat. He was, I believe, the chaplain and did not present to see it. Doubtless, he was at prayer a safe distance in the rear. Colonel Chamberlain also reported it and doubtless believed it, but it was just as I state. I ordered the retreat. When the signal was given, we ran like a herd of wild cattle right through the line of dismounted cavalrymen. Some of the men, as they ran through, seized 3 of the cavalrymen by collar and carried them out as prisoners. As we ran, a man named Keels of Company H from Henry County, who was to my right and rear, had his throat cut by a bullet, and he ran past me, breathing at his throat and the blood spattering. His windpipe was entirely severed, but notwithstanding, he crossed the mountain and died in the field hospital that night or the next morning. So there you have the testimony, the memoir, the recollection of Colonel William C. Oats of the 15th Alabama Infantry at Little Round Top on July 2nd, 1863, heaping praise on his men for their sacrifice and their practical refusal to abandon the field, and paying a tribute to his foes on the other side, led by Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain of the 20th Maine Infantry. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail.